fight fans, so we got ourselves Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury this Sunday. And it's been a much anticipated fight, 2 years in the making. I know it's not the biggest and craziest fight that we want to see Jake Paul in. We want to see him against Nate Diaz. We want to see him possibly against Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, and possibly even a bigger boxing opponent. But you know what? This has been a bit of a grudge match. This has been a match, been like I just said, 2 years in the making. So definitely, very interested to finally see what happens. To finally see Jake Paul step in the ring with an actual boxer. Because let's face facts, whether we like it or not, Tommy Fury is an actual boxer. That's all he's ever done. Never wrestling, never jiu-jitsu, never kickboxing, never any kind of martial arts, just boxing. So now we finally get that. But what I want to ask you guys is this: is what if Jake Paul actually loses? Have we ever thought about that? I actually picked him to win. I already made a video regarding that. Go ahead, check in the archives regarding that video. But I'm just asking you guys, what if he loses? Like, think about that. What would happen to Jake Paul? Um, I don't think a whole lot would happen. I don't think a whole lot would actually. I think, of course, it will show us and answer all that questions. I do feel like his star will dwindle down just a little bit. That star status might dwindle down just a little bit, but it will also answer the questions like, hey, you know what? He is just not that quite ready yet. He's always been talking about fighting Canelo and fighting all these other high level athletes, and he just needs to see that there's levels to this game. It's I want to say for Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, it's very deceiving because we see Jake Paul looking really good, but against MMA fighters, and we see Tommy Fury, you know, doing decent, but his fighters, be that they were boxers, were not that great either. So we really truly do not know how good these guys are. We tend to go lean more towards Jake Paul because their opponents have a little bit more of a status name, and the opponents have a little bit more of a winning record. His opponents had more training and just were a bit higher level in their own right. But still, at the end of the day, they still weren't boxers. So we really don't know how Jake would have done if they were actually boxers. And same thing with Tommy Fury. We've seen these guys weren't really great. They were just. It looks like these guys that he fought were boxing for a hobby, not for a career. And he looked good against them, but we don't know how good Tommy Fury would have looked if he would have went against someone like maybe an Hasim Rahman or something to that nature. So this is going to answer a lot of the questions on who is really good, who is actually really better than the other. Again, we tend to lean more towards Jake just because of the resume that he has that against Tommy Fury's resume. So yeah, we definitely got to see. We're going to get all the answers. All the answers come Sunday. I believe it starts at 2 p.m. Over there in Abu Dhabi. So I think it's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Pacific time. So it's definitely going to be an interesting fight. It's definitely going to be an interesting fight. I know a lot of people are picking Jake Paul, but there always is a puncher's chance. There's always a possibility that Tommy Fury might pull this one out. There is, honestly. I'm picking Jake to win, of course, but I do feel like there's always still that possibility because you also got to know that Tommy Fury doesn't come from just this isn't just some guy that just decided to do boxing. He comes from a fighting family. I mentioned that in the previous video as well. Tommy Fury comes from the world champion of the world. His half brother is the world heavyweight champion, Tyson Fury, and his father was a fighter too. He has probably a few other brothers that were fighters and such like that. So he comes from a very, very heavy fighting background, where on the other hand, Jake Paul recently took up fighting, I want to say, what, 3, 4, 5 years ago? So it's never really been like his grown up thing. This is something that he's still taking on. This is something he's still very, very relatively new to. So we definitely got to wait and see what happens. But I want to know what happens and what your guys' opinion on what happens with Jake Paul if he loses this fight. Again, I personally feel like nothing big is going to happen. It's just going to show us, it's going to answer the questions that, hey, you know what? He is not as good as we thought he was, but he still has room to improve. You guys got to also remember there's nothing wrong with losing. Nothing wrong at all. Everybody loses. All the greats lose. They always get put in. The only way you get put in positions because you test your greatness. You test how really good you are. If you're not losing or if you're not in any trouble, it's because you're afraid of testing how good you really are. You're afraid to go against somebody else that might test how good you actually are because maybe they might prove that, hey, you know what? Maybe you're not as good as you thought you were. But at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, making you better. Is going against someone who's just as good as you, if not better, and they beat you. And then this way you can look at back and say, hey, you know what? I made this mistake, that mistake, this mistake. And you know what? You just get way better than you would have if you were undefeated. That's just my personal opinion, guys. So I feel like if that's something that's going to happen to Jake Paul or even Tommy Fury, that's just all that's going to happen. It's like, hey, you just got to go improve. You just got to go improve. Go back to the drawing board. You're not starting over. You're starting from experience, and that's all you got to do. That's all what it takes. And then honestly, I feel like that second fight would be even bigger now, because now you could say like, oh my God, Jake Paul lost. Let's see what happens when the rematch. Let's see what Tommy Fury can do this time. It could be a trilogy. You never know. It's not something that everybody is so eager to see, and oh my God, this is like so hyped and everything. I get that, but it's still something. It's still going towards what boxing, I guess, is going towards now. Boxing hasn't been the greatest. You could say, with a lot of fighters just choosing not to fight each other, and it's just very bad. And this is what we got, guys. This is what we got. At the end of the day, we still got this entertainment. We still got fighting, and we still got some fights getting coming up later on in the year. Hopefully, more fights get announced more of the year. But this is what we have right now. This Sunday, Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. Let me know what you guys think. What happens if one or the other loses in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.